Welcome to Spoonful of Strength, a podcast for people with chronic illness and the ones who love them.
The compassion that you guys have really shines through.
Rachel and Tina cultivate a sense of comfort.
It was such a rewarding experience.
They were great hosts.
It was amazing. You are so kind.
Spoonful of Strength has given us this great platform.
They were so welcoming.
Here are your hosts, Rachel and Tina.
Welcome to another episode of Spoonful of Strength. We are happy to be with you today, and we have a great episode coming up. In the first part of the episode, Tina and I are going to talk about the family dynamic and how that changes when you've been diagnosed with chronic illness or somebody in your family has been. And in the second part of the episode, we're going to welcome in Diana. And Diana is a caregiver for her daughter who has a few different chronic illnesses. And we're going to talk to her about navigating through her daughter's illness and being her caregiver and the things that she's experienced through that. So how's your week been, Tina?
It's been okay. We busy. I'm trying to get the house ready for incoming guests.
Yay, your grandson.
Yeah, and so I was like, oh, I need to go get, he just turned 2 on Halloween, so I'm like, I need to go get some outlet covers probably.
Yeah.
They'll be here for a couple weeks. They've been in Japan for 3 years. They've been stationed in Japan. So Theo, my grandson, was born there. We got to see him last year. We spent 2 weeks there, but other than that, it's just been video chat. So we're looking forward to having him, but lots to get done between now
thank goodness
and
for
their arrival time, which is just a couple of days away.
Yeah, thank goodness for video chat. You know, I can't imagine having to maneuver that without being able to, because he can see you, he knows what you look like, you know, and that makes a big difference versus not having that.
Right. Yeah. And I think it'll help. Like I know his one set of grandparents, Brittany's mother and her partner, they did not make it over to Japan while they were over there. So they've only been getting to know him via the video chat. And his grandparents on our son-in-law's side, they went over to see him, but he was, I think, only like 4 or 5 months old at the time. So we kind of hit that impressionable age where he was nine months old. So, but it's been nice, and we're anxious for. He loves Yogi, my big sheepadoodle. Like the two of them are ridiculous when they see each other on camera. So we're really looking forward to them finally being able to meet in person, because Yogi loves little kids. So
yeah. Oh gosh.
Yeah. It'll be, and
it's going to be so much fun.
Hopefully I'll start getting, my back will start getting better, because this back is just it's ridiculous of me trying to do something I probably shouldn't have done, and I made it really bad. So
I hope that you can get that settled down, because I know the back is the worst. Your back goes out pretty much.
We need to make a quick road trip tomorrow back up to the Finger Lakes, about 4.5 hours. So I am not, and sitting, the one thing I'm noticing with what's going on with my back this time is that I'm actually, once I'm up and moving around, I'm better off than actually sitting down. So I'm not looking forward to that car ride there and back.
Yeah, I bet. Well, I've got an appointment later today. I don't think I've mentioned this to you much, but I've had to contact my doctor a week or so ago because my breathing has gotten a lot worse. I'm having a lot of chest pain when I'm walking and a lot more fatigue. And so last week I went in for pulmonary testing. The only test that they did, I have to tell you this story because it's so funny, but the only test I had to do is what's called a MIP-MEP. And it's basically just testing how strong your lung muscles are. So it's the force of breathing in and breathing out. And mine has been sitting at about 30% for years now. And so when I have, symptoms that, such as shortness of breath and things like that, that's one of the first things they test. Plus they do an ABG draw, which is not fun. It's a blood test, but it comes out of your artery in your wrist, and it's really painful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I have, since we moved about a year ago, I've been going to a location that's closer to my house, but my doctor wanted me to go closer to his office, which I used to go to. And I got there and I hear my name called, and it's a therapist, a respiratory therapist that I have worked with in the past. And I was like, oh no. And I was like, oh, she's such a sweetheart. But kind of ditzy, I guess, is the only thing I can think of. And she said, all you have to do is we're going to do three tests where you breathe in really hard and 3 tests where you breathe out, and you'll be done. I said, great, easy. She kept forgetting to hit the record button. So I only had 6 times I had to do these tests. She forgot 4. So I had to do 10 different tests. And I'll they have you breathe out and then breathe in as hard as you can. And I would have to sit for a good 20, 30 seconds, just because I would get very dizzy and my chest would hurt and all of that. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like, this is your one job. Like, just hit the record button so it records what my numbers were, which unfortunately came in about 23% on both sides. So I see the doctor today to kind of see what that means. And I did have some results on the blood test that show some high and lows. So I'll get a better explanation of what that means. But I was like, oh, I was so upset by the end of it. And I was real nice to her, it's not, but I left there so exhausted. It was so funny, but, so we'll see what comes up with that. But today we are talking about the family dynamic and how that changes through chronic illness. Tina, how's your family dynamic now? You've got your fiance, or pretty much your husband, right, who's been your main support person. How has your relationship changed, or how did it change while you went through the chronic illness and the cancer?
I think for me, the hardest part was I've always been the one to I feel like keep the household running, so to speak, of the groceries, the cooking, the one thing that he's always done. I will always give him credit. I rarely do laundry. Very, very, unless I need something specific washed, like in a hurry. I am not the laundry girl. He actually does the laundry, but everything else I'm the one that tends to keep running. So it was hard for me to not worry that the house is going to crash and burn if I'm not able to figure out what groceries we need and what meals, and to be able to get in there and cook all the meals and such. So it was, I was very supported during that time, of course, but, I also realized that a big part too that was hard is I enjoy cooking. So like putting somebody else in charge of meals usually involved, figuring out where we were going to DoorDash from right, versus actually cooking. So then that was another struggle, because I knew that we were paying more money for, constantly ordering food out versus cooking, but I just didn't, I had to learn to let it go and take the help, however, whatever was out there and whatever was offered.
Yeah.
How about you? I know that you struggle with, I give you kudos, because I would struggle with making dinner for the whole family if I'm not even wanting to eat, and which I did struggle that, but I know that you don't eat you can't eat that late at night. So was that a hard adjustment for you to continue cooking?
Yeah, I haven't eaten dinner in probably, gosh, I'm going to say like 8 years, maybe. I'll usually grab like, a cheese stick or yogurt or some pretzels or something small. But my symptoms get a lot worse if I eat too much. That's been a tough one. Just because, yeah, it's not benefiting me, but I want, not just for financial reasons, but also just wanting to give my husband and my son, a good dinner and not have them eating out all the time. But luckily the wheelchair that I got over the summer has it's all decked out. It's way over the top. It's, but too much sometimes I think, but it's a beast, but it does elevate, which has been a savior when it comes to cooking, because I can elevate. If I go all the way up as far as it will go, I'm almost as tall as Ed. So I mean, it really, I can get into cabinets. Yeah,
that's
and
nice.
so that's been a big help cooking wise, because the biggest issue is just standing and standing at the stove. And so that's been a big help for me. But, I was diagnosed with MS when all three of my boys were at home. And, we even went through family counseling at one point, just because, just to talk about how my illnesses have affected the family and the kids. I have 3 boys, and they're not really good about sharing their feelings. Neither is my husband. And so just to talk about how the dynamic has changed. And as the boys have grown up and moved out of the house, then it's changed quite a bit. But, the one thing that my therapist said way back when is I was having a meltdown in the therapist's office, which was almost a weekly occurrence at that time, getting into my thoughts of not being a good enough mom because I wasn't able to do some of the things I wanted to do with the kids. And he said, "Don't you understand the gift that you're giving to your kids?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? Like, I can't do all this stuff. Like, what am I giving to them?" And he said, "You're giving them the gift of empathy and being able to see, how things happen, and that as a family, you pick up the pieces and you support that person." And that was something I've carried with me for the last couple of years. But my kids are very aware of, my oldest, in fact, he's on the autism spectrum, and he's never been one to talk a lot about feelings at all. But he is the one currently that will ask me, "How are you doing? How's your shoulder feeling?" And so I see a big difference, with him, and just in how he kind of approaches me. He's the first one to reach a hand out and things like that. So it's hard, but I think it can bring a family together at the same time.
Yeah. I think that your immediate family, I feel in most cases, they're going to be your strongest supporters. And, once you start digging into the extended family, that's where it could be a mixed baggage of those that are understanding and want to help, or even if it's just to lend an ear if you're too far away for them to physically offer help. And then there's others that may feel wouldn't want to say like pushed away, so to speak, but they may struggle with, I guess the one thing that I always sorry, I'm going on a different path on that thought right now of is with the family dynamics, is it can be hard when you feel some of them are pulling away and aren't there to support as much as you were expecting. And, and family is more than blood. So, when you're talking about family dynamics, it's not necessarily blood family. And so it can be hard to not feel somewhat abandoned, when you start noticing some people are just not there in the capacity that you anticipated they would be.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've talked about that with Ed a lot. And for me, I think that part of it is that when I'm around my extended family, I try to put on a brave face. Like I try and put on the best version of myself. And so when you're talking about how, immediate family is very different from extended family, my immediate family sees me in my PJs at 4:00 on some days. They see the struggle with my cognitive issues. They see me from day to day and know the ups and downs. And I remember saying to him, to Ed, I said, they only see what I can put together for this hour and a half that we're meeting. And then I fall apart, on the way home, I'm falling asleep and I'm on the couch the rest of the day, and they don't see that. But, the emotional part is hard as well, because I've struggled with that a lot, of feeling like even if you don't see me day to day and see the struggles, you have to know that it's not easy. And so sometimes you expect people to do more than they're capable of. And some people just aren't capable of providing the emotional support that you need. And so that's where you have to reach out to friends or other family members or anybody that is going to be able to kind of fill in the gap that you're missing. And that can be from extended family, that can be from husbands or wives or whatever that might be. But either way, it's hard. It's very hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that for us, for those that do live with a chronic illness or a serious health crisis, that are living through that, and as it should be, you're focusing on yourself. You're focusing on, okay, I need to focus on me, and I don't have the capacity to focus on how everybody else is feeling when you have to take care of yourself. But so it can be, oftentimes we may overlook the struggles that our loved ones are going through as well. And they may not share those struggles because they're like, oh, you're already going through so much. I don't want you to see me struggling too, because I don't want to lay that on you.
Yeah. My therapist, I don't mean to keep bringing him in, but I've learned quite a bit. But, he had told me at a particular time, what if this person is so scared about your illness that they can't, it almost creates a block from them caring about you as much as you expect them to. And for me, it was like, well, that makes no sense, because if you care about me, then you're going to want to help. You're going to show that. And he had said, something to the point of, like, for some people who face a family member with a chronic illness or cancer, anything like that, that it's so difficult for them to even think about it, that they almost just ignore it.
Yeah. They pull away.
Yeah.
I remember I had a close friend, my initial diagnosis and, my first chemo treatment, she stopped by and was like, here's a little, a little gift, a little inspirational saying. It was a card and, some silly little gift. And she's like, I have plans of, I'm going to stop by after every chemo treatment every week and, and we're going to get through this together. And that was the last time I saw her, during that process. And then so she kind of disappeared on me for a while, and I was like, and it hurt a lot. Because I was like, well, that's one person that I thought was going to be there by my side. Because of course, being out here in Maryland, I didn't, I have a lot of friends, but I don't have a lot of family nearby. So I was leaning on them. And months later, after the chemo was done, after I've kind of recovered from my surgery and was now just doing my immunotherapy, she showed up. She came for one of my support group meetings when I started Hayden Heals, and introduced herself. And she said, she's like, I feel like an awful friend because I wanted to be there to support her, but it was too hard for me to see her go through it. So she pulled away. And that was a struggle for me because I'm just like, it was too hard for you. Like, what do you think I was going through? So it's, as a spoonie, that those of us that do live on a regular basis with a chronic illness, or a disability, sometimes it can be tough to remember that, yes, we're going through it, but those that love us the most are also going through it.
While you're on your phone, come on, I know it's in your hand. Head on over to Spoonful of Strength's Etsy shop at spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com. That's spoonful with 2 L's. We have a wide variety of t-shirts, sweatshirts, hoodies, mugs, and so much more. Anything in the shop can be customized based on your illness. We have sizes from extra small to 5X and many colors to choose from. The best part is most items ship within 2 business days. So head on over to spoonfulofstrength.etsy.com. Ed doesn't tell me a lot of if he's stressed or if he doesn't feel well or any of that. He always says, I'm not going to put more on you by, telling you, oh, I have a stomach ache when you're going through all of this. But as the person with the chronic illness, you also don't want to be excluded and feeling like they're not letting you into the good and the bad of their lives. I don't want it to affect our relationship because he's lost himself, because all he's worried about or caring, all he's showing is just everything he has to do for me emotionally, physically, and all of that, and not taking care of himself. So that's been a constant thing with us, is like, tell me if you're stressed out, tell me if you're having a bad day, tell me this or tell me that, because sometimes it can feel like it's all about me when you're bombarded with all these symptoms, but you've got to have that connection going both ways to be able to have a good relationship, specifically, I guess, with a spouse.
Yeah. It's not one or the other as far as, who needs to be focused on. It's a partnership, and it's, you can't sacrifice the well-being of one person for the sake of another one. Because over time, then that's where you can start seeing some resentment growing, whether they realize it or not. And then, so the dynamics are definitely, of course it's going to change. I think it's great that you all, when you lean on that therapist, you do the family therapy, you do the couples therapy, and then you do it, and then you see one on your own as well. And I think that is, it's super important. Even when I had, when I had my weight loss surgery what has it been, like 16 years ago, I think, when I had that done. And we were pretty diligent about going to the support group meetings, but we did it together because it wasn't just about supporting those that had the surgery, but also, the changes in the relationships that happen through that type.
Yeah.
So it's definitely important to consider those support group meetings, or your family therapies and things like that to help navigate the changes, the household changes, the relationship changes. And I think there's one episode that we're going to talk about. Are we going to talk about intimacy at some point?
Wasn't on our list for this season, but we
maybe
can
not.
add it.
Yeah, I mean, because that changes things as well, and or even just something as simple as like, we like to go out, but if he came home right now and asked me if I wanted to go out to dinner, the way my back feels, I'll be like, no, I'm better off, like, unless there's like a at a deli counter somewhere where I can stand. But so just the things that you used to do together, you may have to make changes to accommodate accommodate your symptoms. Or you just find, you can find joy in anything. You just find new hobbies. You find new things to do together, even if it's just something as simple as, our bookstore date nights where, we do, it's not, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You just find your new thing to do together, even if you have to, especially the couples that may have been very physical, like doing a lot of physical like hikers or, other different type of sports or things, physical activities where you may have to make the adjustments, and you still just find something else that you can still enjoy together.
Yeah. Yeah. I know for us birthdays, we always try and do a lunch instead of a dinner for birthdays, or anniversary. We go out for lunch because, again, I can't eat, too much, but I think those adjustments just have to be done. And my family was always big bowlers. They like to bowl, and the last 4 or 5 times, I haven't been able to bowl. And so it's definitely something that I miss out on, but it's something that I know how much they enjoy, and I get enjoyment out of just watching and those types of things. But and wrapping it kind of back around, with therapy may not be your thing, but for me, I can honestly say, and I haven't been to therapy in probably a year. And it's an open invitation. I've got to come back if I feel like I need it. And I'm sure I probably will. But for me, that's saved our marriage. I mean, Ed will say the same thing, that because we were communicating so poorly, and it was because of the stress of chronic illness and my mental state, and definitely saved my mental health as well. So if that's something that you can afford to do and are open to it, I definitely think that that's a good one, especially for your family.
Let's go ahead, and we're going to welcome in Diana, and she is the caretaker for her daughter, Gaby. And she's going to talk a little bit share their journey with Gaby's diagnosis and everything that they have gone through with Chiari and various other illnesses that were as a result of the Chiari, and what it's like to be her caretaker. Go ahead.
Bring her in.
Welcome Diana in.
So welcome, Diane, to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Good, thank you. You're here to talk about your daughter, Gaby, and her chronic illnesses. And so, first, if you want to start out just by telling us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself to our listeners.
So again, my name is Diana Hines. I am a mother of a 12-year-old known as complex patient because of the amount of chronic conditions that she has. I work in child development. I do home visiting, so that has been a gift to me. I think that having my daughter, and she has been like my college, and then being able to, what I've learned with her, being able to support those families in need has definitely been incredible for me, and just so grateful for that opportunity too.
Tell us a little bit about your daughter, Gaby.
She is so full of spirit. Like this child, I've been told by many people that I am a woman of faith, and I've been told that she inspires a lot of people, that she has just a positive energy, and it's like kind of like an angel when you walk into the room with her. She loves art, and through moments of difficulty, that's when she has been the most inspired to do her art. She loves to read. She loves to do crafts. Loves to, whenever she's able to, she's really big about family time. So we enjoy being able to do a lot of family time games. We love going camping. So we have an RV, and that just makes it a lot easier for our family to be able to give her that space where she can feel comfortable, and we don't have to be like cleaning things around in the hotel or anything like that. So she's very outgoing, she's a people person. She loves to socialize and inspire others, right? It's like, this is what I deal with, but does not define me, kind of thing. So
sounds like she's just a wonderful little girl and has been through quite a bit. Can you walk us through what the first symptoms, because she was diagnosed at a very young age. So what were the first things that you started noticing that something could be wrong?
I would say as an infant, like I said, I work in child development, so I was able to see that she was just not meeting her milestones. She was at 6 months, she had already been diagnosed with a developmental delay. So it's like, okay, there's definitely something going on that it's a little bit out of the box of what I typically see with just the gross motor, or just like the speech that, again, we normally see. And then all of a sudden, around 1 or 2, she stopped breathing on me. And I'm like, okay, this is a little out of the box of like I would see for a child to stop breathing. We brought her into pulmonology, and that's when she said, okay, we need to do a sleep study and see what's going on. We need to do all these testings. And she was always just physically a very sick child. A simple cold would turn into bronchitis, or would turn into pneumonia. And so when we did the sleep study, I'll never forget, her pulmonologist said to me, Mom, so she's having a lot of episodes of central sleep apnea. I had known of obstructed apnea, but I had never heard of central sleep apnea. And so she's like, unfortunately for children her age, and this was, in the process of like seeing her and having the test, by this, she was already like 3. And she said, we don't really see this in children her age unless there was a brain trauma. Was she like, did she have an accident? And I'm like, no, she's never fallen like that to like have a trauma in her brain. So she was like, well, unfortunately, if that is not the case, then there's an 80% chance for kids that have central sleep apnea issues that they have a condition called Chiari malformation. And that was the first time, again, that I had ever heard of Chiari malformation. So that, obviously, as a mom, I was out of words. And so she was like, obviously now that's brain, it's a lot more out of my field. So we had to go and be referred to neurosurgery, neurology. She had to have an MRI. And it took me about a year for me to be able to find the right specialist for her, because here in Tampa we had the MRI, we saw multiple neurosurgeons, but nobody could give me an answer. And at that point, my child was regressing even more with her speech. She was having severe migraine headaches. She was losing her balance. And again, the back of my head, and you're like working on child development, it's like, okay, there's something wrong. Like, this is just not a typical thing to happen for this age. And at the age of 4, on September 14th, she was officially diagnosed with Chiari malformation. And the doctor said to me, unfortunately, I am ashamed that these doctors did not pay this much attention as it needed to be, because she was only herniated 6 millimeters, which to some doctors that's not enough, but she had so many symptoms that kind of fit the box, right? And so he said, unfortunately, and I'll never forget, like, I can still close my eyes and see the big screen in the office room. And he said, you see this white spot on her brain? That is spinal fluid that she's retaining right there, Mom. We need to have a surgery immediately. However, I am going to give you that time to process. And, you are obviously the parent. You need to make the right decision for your child. I think that was one of the hardest times for us to just understand, is this really happening? Like, we went from, okay, central sleep apnea to now Chiari to now hearing, okay, yes, there is something going on and we have to have a surgery immediately. And I saw that white spot and it was big. And he said, she's obviously retaining fluid there. If we don't do something soon, a tragedy can happen, right? So, and what do you think as a parent? It's like, okay, it's one of those things that try to put things in a balance of okay, it's a worth just not going through this, because obviously it was going to be a brain surgery. She would have had what they call brain decompression in the back of her head, which there's a lot of risks right there. They have to open the door and just so much that comes with it. It's not just a simple surgery. And I mean, when you look at the brain, regardless, it's already a difficult situation. And on October 16, my 4-year-old was having her first brain decompression.
Can you walk us through your experience with the surgeries that Gaby had?
The surgery went well, but unfortunately, Gabriella did not recover well because of how deteriorated her dura was. She started retaining spinal fluid in the back of her head. It literally looked like a baseball ball. It was such a big sack that no matter what we did, it would just continue to grow. And then, unfortunately, at that time, her surgeon had went on vacation, and so it was his partner who did not feel comfortable taking care of our daughter from the get-go. So that put a bit of a like uncomfortable feeling for us. So, and then he decided to place a shunt. Actually, in one of my Facebook memories today, we had to go back to the hospital because she had had an infection from that shunt that the doctor had placed. And so, long story short, she had about 9 surgeries in a matter of barely 3 weeks, because she kept rejecting shunts. She just kept getting infections. Her body was just not able to fight it. And the severe headaches, the vomiting, and it was a lot for her. And then with that, we obviously learned that she had secondary hydrocephalus, which is why she required the shunt. During the time of an evacuation, about a little bit less than a year after that, we evacuated, and on our return, I realized that her incision was pussing. So I reached out to the surgeon, and they immediately said, you guys need to come in. he said, I'm going to try to save the shunt because obviously that's not something that we want to keep putting in and out. They put her on heavy antibiotics, and it was a back and forth like, okay, we need to try to save the shunt, but she's not healing well. So eventually he ended up having to remove the shunt. And that's when he said, well, some of the Chiari patients can eventually have, in quotes, like their hydrocephalus goes away, because this was actually caused by her Chiari. So that's when he attempted to remove the shunt, and in hopes that she would be able to drain on her own. On the third day, she became unresponsive. So that's when we found out that, okay, this is going to be permanent. This is definitely going to be permanent. And it was a scar that was left for her till this day that we've all tried to overcome, and the PTSD that obviously we all developed from that. She has been doing relatively well in that aspect, but she also has Noonan syndrome, for which affects her growth, her weight gain, ability to learn. However, she's a very smart child, and I've had conversations with her surgeons where they've said if it was not because of how much you guys worked with her brain and getting that cognitive development back like in target, she probably wouldn't be where she is today. Right now, she's 12 years old, and she has a whole list of conditions that are incurable, so that are very difficult to treat. If she's having to go through, like, if we're going to go somewhere that she's going to be walking a lot, or she's going to be up time, she uses a wheelchair. We learned that even after the tether cord release, there was still some damages that there was no cure to that. Like there was nothing that could be done. But we've definitely seen improvements. But to my understanding, the older they get, the worse the symptoms. So we take it day by day. We've learned to adapt and enjoy life to the fullest and not take anything for granted. We are very open with her. I think that was one of the things that really helped her as well in that process of recognizing what she has and what she deals with on a regular basis. I'm also very big about teaching her to advocate for herself, because her space, her space just has been invaded so much, right? She has been deprived from being able to make the decision of, no, I don't want you to poke me. No, I don't want to take this medicine, because there was no option but to do it. And so now is, okay, honey, so you're in pain. What can I do to help you? So we always try to kind of like go down the list of the alternatives for her case. So like she sleeps with a heat pad, she sleeps with a cooling pad. Okay, that didn't help. So what do I need to do now, right? So that she's able to recognize that on her own without me having to say, okay, so you need to take this, so you need to take that. That's kind of how it's been. 17 surgeries at this point between brain and spine. She is at her, I think her 6th shunt, maybe. And when people ask me, oh, but she looks so fine. Yes, outside, she looks fine. But how about you take that time to ask her how she truly feels? Because I think we typically, as humans, tend to jump into conclusion of, oh, okay, you physically look fine. Like you don't look like you're sick, or you have a disability or a disorder or a syndrome, right? Because you're not showing it physically. But when you remove her clothes, you can see the battle she has fought. It's her entire body, it's filled with scars.
Join Spoonful of Strength on Instagram, a community open to everyone. Whether you have a chronic illness or support someone who does, you are welcome at Spoonful of Strength. You'll get preview clips of the upcoming episodes and insight into my world as a spoonie. That's Spoonful of Strength, Spoonful with 2 L's, on Instagram.
How does Gaby handle the chronic illness?
One thing that I try to teach her is that if spiritually and mentally we're strong, we can fight our illnesses a lot, probably easier. Not that you won't get sick, but it would take us through that challenge a bit better, right? Because we're not in that mind frame of I'm done, or I'm sick, or I'm this. I can't do anything. And she's had moments like that, but it's when we're like, okay, let's get you back up. Let's make sure that we love on you, and we tell you that this is not going to define you. There's a purpose for you in this life.
Yeah. Sounds like even at a young age, because she really hasn't known anything else but pain in her life. So I know that's got to be frustrating.
I'm in awe of everything that she has gone through.
Yeah. I wonder, kids can be so resilient, when it comes to surgeries and things at a young age. Those 3 weeks that you all had to go through 9 surgeries. I mean, as a parent, how have you been mentally doing throughout the process? Because I can't even imagine in a 3-week time having to go through surgery 9 times. What was that like?
So it was very, very difficult because like I said, after finally finding a specialist, we ended up in Orlando, and I live in Tampa. So as much as some people say, okay, Orlando is not that far, but from where we actually live, it was about 3 hours. And so my husband had to come back on the weekends. And I mean, he would go to the hospital on the weekends, and then during the week I was by myself. And the 3 weeks, that was just the beginning. When we added everything up, it was actually about almost 3 months that we were in the hospital. So we didn't come out until just a few days before Christmas. And so for me, knowing that it was so soon, like the diagnosis was, okay, we have a diagnosis, and then it's like, okay, now you have to have surgery, and then surgery. So I ended up having to be medicated for depression, which was really hard for me because my body was just not adjusting to the medicine, and I would not leave her side. I mean, it was like I was like attached to her hip pretty much. I didn't want to leave the room to shower. I didn't want to leave the room to eat. The nurses and the staff became my family during the week, and they would have to come and say, "Mom, we got you. Like, we have someone like child life specialist." They were beyond amazing how they work with her and how they work with me, just to make me feel comfortable with, she's going to be okay. And if something happens, we will call you. We want you to just go and take a walk. We want you to go and take a long shower, because I mean, it was like, I am in and out of that shower if I could. I think I was just on go-go mode. I wasn't processing. I was not thinking about myself. I was not thinking anything but, I need to get my child out of this, right? I need to get my child out of the hospital, because that was when she then started saying, am I ever leaving? I'm going to die here. Okay. And so I think live would come back to me every weekend. And I look forward to the weekend because I was able to have my family with me. I'm also very attached to my parents. We're very close. I'm the only child, but my parents live nearby. So we've always been very tight, very close. And so they will also drive to Orlando on the weekend and be with us for the entire weekend, literally like until Sunday evening. And then on top of that, I lost my job. So eventually it was like, okay, so this is not going to be okay, she had one surgery, she had two or whatever, we're done, she's good to go, or she's cured, right? Like, or she had this specific treatment and she's fine. This is going to be an ongoing situation for the rest of our lives. So what am I going to do? Obviously, my medication was not doing it for me, so I stopped it. And so I started I would grieve because I learned that you don't only grieve when you lose a loved one, right? I'm going to feel all the emotions and allow myself to feel them because before I was never one to show emotions that way. It was like, I am strong. I don't cry. Right? I don't show emotions like that. So I allowed myself to feel all those emotions. By doing that, it gave me the space and the emotional freedom to say, okay, I am ready to then accept. Because by me accepting, I was able to process and able to think clearly. Well, now what do we need to do? Okay, so now we just jumped into her shunt failing. All right, so we need to make sure we contact the surgeon now. I learned to read her body. I almost became her body because she, again, would not tell us how she felt from the bad PTSD that she developed. Her fear was that if I say I'm in pain or I'm not feeling well, I'm having a really bad headache, you're going to take me to the hospital and I'm going to have another surgery. Mm-hmm. So I had to become her body. And by being able to do that, I had to learn to accept. I had to learn to accept that, okay, this is happening. So step 1, step 2, and step 3, how do we get this done? What do we need to do? Let's rush. By me being able to practice those two, I then was able to walk and look forward and be okay. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like I kind of apply my own psychology because I do have a bachelor's in psychology. So I learned that if I did not practice that, this would have been so much harder. And I've taught it to my daughter as well so that it's easier for her to see even the blessings in the midst of that. And with the blessings come, I also I realized that I couldn't walk this path without having God by my side. Because obviously I became angry. I became, where are you? Right? Did you just abandoned my child? Why me? Why my child? Right? Like all those questions that parents will ask themselves. And eventually I realized that I just couldn't do this by myself. Once you have your children, it's like you have an enormous amount of, I guess, strength of you become like that second now, especially when you have a chronic child. And it's, you may be at times in survival mode, but eventually it's like, okay, we got this, we can do this. And that's why I said we learn to adapt. We learn this is our lifestyle. And whoever wants to be in our lifestyle will be for good or will not be. Because this is how we have to live in order for us to give her the best life that we can.
As caretakers, a lot of times we fall into that trap that we have to sacrifice ourselves versus realizing that by taking care of ourselves first, that allows us to be there to help those that need our help. So how difficult was that for you to finally kind of embrace that realization that, hey, you know what, I actually have to focus on me too?
That's a really good question because it took me, well, this month we're celebrating 8 years since this all started. And it took me a couple of years. I would say probably 4 or 5 years. It wasn't until not too long ago that I said, okay, I call it, I can't give from an empty cup. Okay. So I said, again, this is going to be an ongoing thing. She needs me well. She needs me emotionally and psychologically well, because how can I help her when I'm not psychologically well, mentally well? That doesn't mean that I will have my moments, because part of that was also recognizing, it's okay for her to see that we can cry out of sadness, and just like she's crying out of sadness, or if she would start to cry, that I would cry with her. And that would be my way to show her, mommy's sad right now, but I think it's good for us to cry. And so it takes those moments, right? But I am able to get back into, okay, now what? Diana, you need to cry. You cried, you felt angry, you felt sad, you felt all the emotions. Okay, good. Where are you at now? Do you still need more time to cry? Maybe a little bit. All right. So it's like I do my own internal talk with myself and see where I'm at.
I always feel like it's always good to have somebody there that will feel it with you, because you get sometimes people that, you're like, I'm really having a bad day and I'm really not feeling good. And they say, oh, well, it'll be all fine. And they're, everything will be great. Just look positive and all of that. But to see someone you love really feeling that as well, it shows her how much you care, about her. I think we could talk all night, but I have a 2-part question to kind of try and wrap everything up. But what have you learned from Gaby? What has she taught you? And what are your hopes and your dreams for her going forward?
That's such a good and hard question too. But I mean, this child is teaching both of us, my husband and I, because he's been like right there, walking right beside me. Definitely, like you said, her resilience, but it goes so much more beyond that. It's her maturity, her way of accepting. I think that has made her a lot more open to kindness, to recognizing that, like, there was a child in her class that is autistic, and she said, Mommy, I think so and so is autistic. And I said, so what about it? She's like, I think she felt a little uncomfortable because of how some of the children were being with her. And I said, well, what did you do? She said, I came to her and I said, it's going to be okay.
Aww.
So, that sometimes as adults, we tend to complain sometimes for the smallest things. And here's a child who is, I mean, in some of her most vulnerable and most like hardest times, and where I was like, okay, is this going to be it for my child? She just kept fighting. She just kept fighting and would not complain, and was just, I just want to get better. Right? I just want to get out of here, but would not lose that spirit. Remind me, what was the second question, please?
Your hopes and dreams for her.
She actually hopes to become an artist, because she loves art, and she would love to volunteer at children's hospitals so that she can do art therapy. That would be my hope for her. It's I don't hope for, I mean, I tell her all the time, baby, reach for the stars. If that is how high you want to go, you do that and you don't let anyone stop you. My dream, obviously, that one day we can hear like everything is gone. She's fine, she's cured, there's nothing. But I can continue to pray and hope and just continue to support her and I do feel that giving her a balance, a lifestyle of support, good environment, where the relationship between my husband and I and her is so tight that she feels the love, that she feels the support, that makes her spirit feel alive. And that makes her want to live and want to, do things and fight.
She sounds like she's just a special young lady.
And that's what I tell her. She said, Mommy, is that I'm special. And I said, well, special, but she wouldn't say, and that's why I asked, because she won't say like, I am a special child. She says it more in the aspect of, I'm different. And so it's like, well, you are special, but yes, you are different in some way. Because can you imagine, like, let's think about mommy and daddy. Wouldn't it be boring and mom and dad were just the same if we didn't have anything different? So it's just the way we word being different. Right. And how children nowadays are wording being different. We are all different, honey. We may have similarities, and that's why we feel attracted to having this friend, or having, or a boy that I might like, right? So that's where the differences and similarities come. They say, but you are a special child. And I know that there's a purpose for you so big. She said, I just hope that one day I can really make these dreams come true, to be an artist and be able to help all these children like the life specialists have done for me. Because again, since she was little, that's like you said, right? That's all she's been around. And I think another part of that I feel kind of sad about is how fast she had to mature. Because she's been surrounded by adults and hospitals and doctor appointments, that's all she knows. Versus spending time with children. She says it herself. Excuse me. I don't like being around children. I like being around the adults. I get along with them, and they don't judge me like children's do. The same thing with the books. Books don't judge me. Books don't make fun of me. So.
I'm just, I don't know, in awe of everything that she's gone through. And my stepdaughter was born premature and went through a lot in her young life. And it's amazing the resilience of children, when they go through these things. And I definitely feel like they handle it better than we would as adults. Sometimes.
I completely agree, because there are times now that I'm like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. No.
Yeah.
No,
Absolutely.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. So it really shapes them into who they are in an amazing manner.
Yeah. We just can't thank you enough for coming on today and sharing Gaby's story. We will be tagging your Instagram page so that people can follow your story and get to know Gaby's story a little bit better. So we'd be glad to do that. But just give her a big hug from us and tell her how strong she is. And we're all jealous of just how much strength she has in a young woman's body. So she's just amazing. And thank you for all you have done for her and being such a good support person for her.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
that was really eye-opening from a caretaker point of view with Diana.
Heartbreaking as a mother.
It's just as a mother, and her being so young, Gaby being so young when this all first started. So I really enjoyed chatting with her. Next week's episode, we are going to have Caitlin. She's our youngest one that we've had on the episode. She's 16. She's going to be sharing her journey with POTS. And then before we bring her on, we'll be talking about the physical activities and the accommodations that you may have to make in order for your physical activity. Thank you so much for joining us this week, and we will talk to you later.
Don't forget to follow the podcast, click on the bell to receive notifications on new episodes, and give us a rating. Feel free to send us a comment on the episode you just listened to. Thank you for being a loyal listener.